Movie camera, welcome to Brainrot, Echoes, where the echoes of forgotten truths, ideas, and memories are awakened. A child who heard the echo, far from where Orin had stood, beyond stars that no map named, beyond the edge of what any mind dared imagine, was a small world. A world so quiet that even time seemed to pass it by unnoticed. On this world there was a child. She had no name. Not yet. No one had thought to give her one. The people of her world had long forgotten the art of naming, the art of stories. They spoke only of work, of survival, of the turning of seasons as measured by the fading of suns. But the child listened. Every night, when the sky bled with dying stars, she sat alone on a ridge of stone, gazing into the blackness. And one night, as the cold air stung her skin, she heard it. A pulse. Faint, distant, so soft she thought at first it was the wind in her ears, or the beat of her own heart longing for more. But it came again, low, steady, calling. "What is that?" she whispered, though no one was there to answer. And in the stillness, she felt something stir inside her, a memory not her own, a dream that had waited longer than her world had existed. The child pressed her small hand against the ground, as if to steady herself against a force she could not see. And in the darkness, she spoke aloud, voice trembling. "Is there someone there? Someone who left this sound for me to find?" The echo of the universe did not answer in words, but the heartbeat came again, not louder but clearer. And with it came an image, soft and fleeting, a figure turning from a great light, leaving behind pages that glimmered as they scattered into the stars. Orin. She did not know the name, but she knew, without knowing how, that someone had once stood at the center of everything and had left this gift behind. "A story," she breathed, "a story I have not yet heard." And for the first time, the child dreamed. She dreamed of places beyond her sky, of voices carried in starlight, of names waiting to be spoken. The next morning, she rose before the sun. She gathered stones and began to carve. Not words, not yet, but shapes that felt like the rhythm she had heard. The people of her world watched her in silence, puzzled, unsure what madness had taken the child. But the heartbeat went on, and she listened. And somewhere, in the deep quiet between stars, Orin's story began again, this time through the hands of a child who had heard the echo. End of chapter, and beginning of a new tale. A story truly ends only when no one remains to listen. And as long as even one soul hears its echo, it begins anew. The first word. The child's hands bled as she worked, but she did not stop. From the jagged stones, she carved shapes, circles, lines, spirals, anything that felt like the rhythm she had heard that night. Day after day, she returned to the ridge, adding new marks, new patterns. The stones became a language only she understood, but the people of her world began to notice. At first they watched in silence, as one might watch the wind shape the sand. But then curiosity grew. "Why do you waste your strength on these marks?" An elder asked her one evening, his voice dry as the cracked earth. The child looked up, eyes bright despite her weariness. "Because they're the beat of something greater." I heard it. It spoke without words. Now I give it words. The elder frowned. There are no words left worth saying. The world has no need for stories. But the child only smiled. "Not yet, but it will." And she worked on. Seasons turned. The stars above shifted. The shapes she carved spread along the ridge, then down into the valley. Others began to help. Awkward at first, uncertain, but drawn by the quiet strength in the child's task. Where once there had been only toil and survival, now there were patterns on stone, whispers of meaning. The people began to gather at the ridge at dusk, listening as the child traced her fingers along the carvings and spoke softly. She told no great tales at first, only the memory of the heartbeat she had heard, only the feeling it had left in her bones. But that was enough. The city of listeners. Years passed. The child grew. Her name became She Who Listened, for no one could remember a time she had not been there, listening to the echoes of the unseen. The ridge became a place of gathering. The carvings became walls, and the walls became shelters. And one night, As the people sat together beneath the stars, a new sound rose, not the distant pulse from beyond the sky, but the rhythm of drums carved from hollowed trees, beating in time with the memories she had shared. The city of listeners was born that night. Here, stories were not just told, they were built. Every stone placed in rhythm, every home shaped in harmony with the great pulse the girl had first heard as a child. And through it all, the people began to dream. The return of the unnamed. But as the city grew, so did the hunger for more. One evening, standing upon the highest tower, she who listened gazed at the horizon and felt a pang in her heart. I have given them memory. I have given them the heartbeat. But have I given them too little? That night, the pulse returned, faint but clearer than before. And with it came a vision, not of Orin, but of another, a figure cloaked in shadow, unnamed, forgotten by time, walking the edge of the universe. The echo is not enough. The vision seemed to whisper. The story must be carried forward. The teller must return. She who listened knew, then, that her task was not yet done. At dawn, she gathered her people. The city of listeners is not the end, she said. It is the beginning. We must send forth those who will seek the source of the heartbeat, who will find the one who left it behind. And so they began to build not just homes, but ships, not of wood or stone, but of dream and will. Vessels meant to cross the endless night, in search of the first storyteller's trail. End of chapter, and the dawn of a new journey. No story lives if it stays still. No dream breathes if it dares not move. And so they set forth, a people reborn by a single echo, carried on to seek the voice that first dared to speak. Milky Way, the voyage beyond the stars. The ships had no sails. They needed no wind. They were built from the bones of dreams, bound together by strands of will. And it was the drumbeat, the ancient rhythm bestowed upon the people by the listener, that guided their way. The ship glided across the sky like a prayer released into the night. Those who set out carried little, a bit of food, a bit of water, and stones engraved with symbols of the beat, so they would not forget their origin. Night after night, the stars drifted beneath them. They passed through bands of radiant dust, immense dark vortices, and showers of light from worlds being born and dying. One night, the leader listened amidst the endless expanse and whispered, "Is anyone out there? Has anyone ever heard this beat, besides us?" The wind gave no reply, but in the silence he heard his own voice and understood that each person aboard had become part of that beat. Milky Way, the forgotten words. They arrived at dead planets, at cities turned to ash, at lands where language had dissolved into sand. There, they found remnants, walls carved with symbols no one could read, scrolls crumbling beneath their fingers, monuments shattered and fading like memories erased by the wind. One among them, the youngest child, picked up a shard of stone etched with a spiral. Looking up at the listener, the child asked, "Is this part of the beat?" She nodded, her gaze lost in the distance. Every forgotten word was once a beat. We did not come to gather fragments. We came to listen to them one last time, before they fade into silence. And so they carved those forgotten words upon their ship's hull, so that as the wind brushed past, it would carry the whisper of memory. Milky Way, the meeting at the edge of time. At last, they reached the place where light stopped. A boundary without time, where stars were nothing but dying embers. There, they met the wanderer. No name left, no clear form. A figure cloaked in a robe woven from moments that had already passed. The listener stepped forward, voice trembling. "Are you the one who left the beat behind?" The figure said nothing. It raised a hand dusted with the ash of time, pointing behind, to where a gateway opened in the void. This gate, the listener whispered, "Where does it lead?" For the first time, the figure spoke, a voice raspy as wind over cold ash. "To where every beat begins. To where you must ask yourself, did you travel to seek or to become the beat itself?" No one in the crew spoke. They only looked at one another, then silently followed the listener into the gateway without bottom, without end. End of 3 chapters. Every journey begins with the beat of another. but it truly lives only when we dare to create our own.